I wanted to create businesses that gave me space to live life because to me, yes, there's a dollar side and I love having the financial ability to be able to impact, to be able to give. But really, to me, wealth isn't just measured in dollars. It was really measured by the amount of time that I had to enjoy what mattered most. I was earning 400 grand at 25 years old and I hated my life. I was burnt out. I was overworked. I was unhealthy. I mean, it was awful. And I was like, if this is success, like this is not for me, I guess. And really at that age is where I had to redefine success for me.
Hey, it's Rocky. Welcome to Richer Soul. Today's guest is Cathy Christen, who shares how to live on your terms. Imagine it's 12 months from now, and you've achieved your major life goals. How does it feel to be in the best shape of your life? To wake up energized, excited about the day, to have great relationships and friends who support you and propel you forward. How does it feel to have an excess of money, to be able to make the choices you want, to be fearless and open to trying new adventures? Imagine being connected to the universe and it providing everything you desire. It's possible over time, and your past does not dictate your future. The only thing holding you back from this vision is you. It's time to take control of our thoughts and use them to our advantage. Welcome to Richer Soul, where we achieve our dreams and bring balance to health, wealth, relationships, time, and spirituality. If you have not had a chance to listen to episodes 1 through 9, I encourage you to go back and listen to the framework behind Richer Soul and how to create the life of your dreams. You can also find all the show notes for this episode at richersoul.com. It's amazing how small the world of Richer Soul guests are. Our guest today is in business with people that have been guests here and friends with some of my other guests, but we didn't meet through any of them. It's funny how these things all come together, and we've been to many of the same programs, but at different times. The reality is success leaves clues. People go through many of the same experiences and journey, but on their own path. Once again, we have another great journey for you to learn from and to capture some takeaways. Cathy Christen is a serial entrepreneur, vibrant speaker, and executive business coach with over 2 decades of experience, specializing in crafting a life by design. She's renowned as the culture queen. She excels in team dynamics and reclaiming entrepreneurs' time. She's helped thousands of them from all sorts of industries start and grow their businesses while living a life they love. She is also co-founder of GoBundance Women, and she spends a lot of time there, helping women to break barriers and empower them. Let's meet Cathy and learn from her. Welcome to Richer Soul, Cathy Christen. It's great to have you join us today.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Rocky, for making time for this conversation.
And I'm excited to learn from you. We always like to start at the beginning. What was it like when you were growing up, and how much did your family and school teach you about money?
Oh, yes. So I would say family and school taught me to fear money. I feel like growing up, I grew up in a lower income household, 6 people in a 2-bedroom apartment. And I grew up with family, grandparents, everyone saying, money is the root of all evil. And, all the negative things to scare. If you have a lot of money, it's because you have the wrong priorities, and really created this fear of having money, because I'd be a bad person if I had a lot of money when I was younger. But I also saw how much my family struggled. And I was like, well, these guys can take care of things, can go on vacations. Like, I know money doesn't buy happiness, but they, I was like, they're at least comfortable and there's less arguments. And so I grew up seeing a lot of issues around finance, having just the programming that it was bad, but also really wanting it and desiring it, because I love to do things for others. I love to travel. Like, I had all these goals for myself. And so it was a battle, and it was a battle that I didn't even realize went on through my 20s. It wasn't until like early 30, about a decade ago, where that really shifted for me. So it actually took a long time. I was at Date with Destiny for Tony Robbins. And I remember sitting there going, oh my gosh, and realizing like just like all the bad programming I had around money. And I was really good at making it. I mean, I was making six figures by 21. I was earning over 400 grand by 25. And I was really good at spending it all or giving it away. So that didn't shift until a little bit later, but I had a lot of love, but definitely my family struggles with finances big time until my siblings and we've cut that curse.
So what happened at Date with Destiny that changed it?
I think we were going through meditation, one night talking about things and just kind of seeing where we were through different parts of our lives. And as I was going through that, I just had this aha. I was like, oh my gosh, like all of as he was talking through it, it was like all the things that you can do with money and how you can impact. And all of a sudden this like aha of like, okay, more money equals more impact. Right. And I really realized like, it isn't like, it was the financial, there's two aspects of it. So let's say this, rewinds, because one thing for me, I knew that I wanted time freedom. I wanted to create businesses that gave me space to live life because to me, yes, there's a dollar side and I love having the financial ability to be able to impact, to be able to give. But really, to me, wealth isn't just measured in dollars. It was really measured by the amount of time that I had to enjoy what mattered most. Because I was earning 400 grand at 25 years old and I hated my life. I was burnt out. I was overworked. I was unhealthy. I mean, it was awful. And I was like, if this is success, like this is not for me, I guess. I don't know. And really at that age is where I had to redefine, success for me. And it wasn't. And I still kept earning money and doing good things with it. But at Tony Robbins, it really clicked of more money equals more impact. I was watching all the things they were doing with their foundation and all the ability they have to bless. And I was like, I want to be able to do that. I've done that at a smaller scale and I want to be able to give freely. Like on my list, I had written, I want to give away. One of my biggest goals for my lifetime is to give away $1 million in a year. That's super exciting to me. And really wealth building and setting up my kids now, for legacy in our family of being able to provide for themselves, for their family, but like, how can we give freely? I'm so inspired by someone from my church where they give 2 times as much annually than they live with. And they live a pretty nice life, and I remember seeing that and I was like, that's what I want. I want enough where we can live the life we want, bring people along, bless others, and be able to give back, because we can. And I really realized that like, your mindset around money when I was at Tony Robbins, like really that determines your reality, and like that your beliefs really shift your outcomes. And so I started really focusing on some different mantras for myself and focuses. And it was really exciting, what I was able to do over the next 10 years.
And that was kind of the question. Was it instantaneous or like, did you have the aha and then you had to do the work to kind of come in line with the aha?
I think that the work for me had been happening for a while, but I didn't put it all together. And there was this battle because I just kept feeling like, oh, like I have this, like, I'm not a good person. Like I talked to my grandma and she'd be like, well, you just have the wrong priorities or, this or that. And I was like, do I, it made me question so many things because I was like, I'm a really good person. I love to give. And so I struggled with that. And so I think that when it was just like more money equals more impact, came very clearly as we were doing a meditation, it was this instant shift of like, all right, like I have a responsibility to manage my money properly, to make it grow, to build wealth, and to be able to share that with others, because I have been blessed with tools, resources, and opportunities. And I'm also someone of faith. And that was something that hit me hard too, of like, there's a responsibility to grow, to really build. And I wanted to step into that more, and so I think that for me, it was a more instant thing, but it had been a battle for like a decade. So that moment, so I guess it's like the whole overnight success, that took 10 years. I think it kind of was like that.
So there was the 10 years of work leading up to it, not you had the instant and then the 10 years of work after.
Right.
It's okay. Right. At some point it kind of comes together. What were you doing that allowed you to have such success at an early age?
So I actually started working with Cutco back when I was 19 in 2002 as a summer job. And I remember that summer wanting to save an extra $5,000 to do a study abroad program. And as a 19-year-old in 2.5 months, I was able to earn $22,000. And I was like, what? And that was more money than I'd ever seen. That was almost what my mom earned in a year as a secretary. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, like this is wild. And I continued with them. That was between my sophomore and junior year at university, then continued with them and did an entrepreneurship internship the next summer. And then the following year, decided to continue with them. And so I loved it because it was a place where I was rewarded for my effort. What I put into it, I got out of it. And I always had a lot of grit, and I think I prided myself always in being young, being able to outwork anybody or, having the discipline to succeed, whether it was in academics, sports, and then now with finances.
What was it that led you to early success? Because I'm guessing, just from what you said, you weren't calling up your parents' friends selling them $100 of knives, right? You had to go out and find people.
Mm-hmm. Well, the program actually, it starts with people to get comfortable, and it's all referrals. So you're learning networking. It's all referral based. You're not just given leads. And so it was learning, I think, the discipline, to be able to go and muscle through making phone calls, even though they were warm calls. Sometimes they were cold. I mean, it was warm because they were connected to somebody that I had seen. But being able to really let go of anything that would, the fear of the unknown, like that was something that an early coach was like, fear is false expectations appearing real. And you're creating all this in your head, right? And so can you shift it? And instead of thinking, oh my gosh, what if I'm bothering them? What if this? What if they don't, think like, who do I get to connect with? Who do I get to meet? Who gets to meet me? I remember my early mentor saying, if someone says they won't do an appointment, stinks for them. They don't get to meet you, And so it was this like kind of growing my confidence in that. If someone did get to do an appointment with me, they were, their day was going to be better, right? Like that was something I told myself. And so it excited me to connect and chat with people. But I think that for me it was mentorship, number one, that has been one of the most integral parts of my growth and success since middle school, right? Like had I not had a mentor tell me, you can do anything, you can outwork the other people, because going from being low income, I was actually blessed to go to a private school, a small private school in middle school through scholarships and help from our church. And it was that time that I first saw, oh, wow, like I don't have what these people have. And I felt less than. And I was like, I don't have the opportunities. I don't have the resources. I don't have the connections. Like, how is this going to work? Right. And it was the first time where I doubted myself, and I remember my best friend's father, who was a mentor at that time to me. I didn't know that he was a mentor, but he was a huge mentor for me, say, Kat, like if you put your mind to anything, you get a goal, you get clear on what you want, you make a plan, and then you take action and you have discipline to deliver that plan, you can do anything. And that was paramount in my life, and I think that really guided the way I did everything, because I started looking, I'm like, okay, I need to set a goal. I need to make a plan. I need to have discipline to get that plan done. And then obviously having accountability. So having great mentors or accountability partners, or now, masterminds and groups that I'm in, to be able to hold each other accountable, just the power of that and being able to move so much further faster through that, uplifting accountability.
I guess you lucked into the right person to kind of promote you, push you up, and be able to do that. And I think that's one of the things kids are not aware of, is their friends' parents are great connections that can do that and move you up. You're still with Cutco, right?
I am 23 years later.
Have you noticed a difference? Because what they're talking about, the young generation won't pick up the phone.
Oh, yeah.
How are they dealing with this?
Oh, my gosh. We've seen this shift happening over the past, I'd say 5 to 7 years. COVID really did one in for like those students that were home, and the social anxiety to call people, the feeling like they're a burden or they're bothering people, it has been quite a challenge. And I think a lot of us have been navigating trying to help reframe, who do you get to help? Who do you get to connect? Whose life will be better because they get to meet you? And that's how I grew up thinking about it. Right. And definitely like today's youth, it's like, I saw somewhere that there was an article that said that today's youth, calling someone feels like they're knocking on someone's doorstep unannounced. And like, that's how it feels to them. Right. And I was like, whoa, like that's so wild. So the arena has changed a lot. I have seen, I don't mean this about it, but like a little bit softer in terms of the ability to just go out to grind, to get stuff done. Like there are a lot more, there's a lot more anxiety around picking up the phone for sure, which is really, what have you seen with that, Rocky?
And that's what I hear. It's funny because my kids don't call me, they FaceTime me.
Okay.
Because they prefer it, which is kind of weird because you'd think it would be easier to call somebody than to get video on with them. But yet they prefer getting on with video. And, as you were talking, it's funny because when I was young, when the phone rang, like everybody stopped everything to run to answer the phone. Now nobody answers the phone, right? So culturally, that's kind of shifted too. Of course, we all didn't have a phone in our pocket.
Well, I think people used to love getting phone calls, but now 90% of your calls are spam calls. So it's like, you don't want to pick up the phone. You don't want to pick up the phone. We're like, that didn't exist before. Someone was calling. It was usually someone you wanted to talk to, right? So.
That or it was a crank call, somebody.
True.
But it was different. And society changes. And I guess you have to shift with that and change with that. So are they still then making phone calls or are they texting and emailing? Or
it's a combination. A lot has shifted to texting. I'm still a big proponent of phone calls, with our guys. And for those who are really nervous, I'm like, hey, if you want to start with text, but the goal is to get comfortable because obviously in the future, I believe, as we continue to include robots, AI, everything as it's evolving, the power to have effective communication, to have self-confidence and being able to talk to anyone, anywhere, to being able to lead, right? And the higher you are up in a company, the more people report to you. And so having that ability, that confidence to execute those skill sets will take you further as we move in, because a lot of the mundane, a lot of the easy tasks, they will be replaced by robots, but we still need visionaries. We still need people to lead those, to tell them what to do. And so that's where I believe, being able to still do those things, being able to push out of your comfort zone really helps open, doors to more opportunities that others won't have because they're not developing those skill sets. And more, that's what companies need, are the leadership and communication aspect to be able to interact with people, to do the deals, to negotiate and so forth.
And I think more than ever now, we're kind of swinging back that people want to work with people, and people also relate to the quirkiness in people. Right? You find you're quirky. Like, hey, that's my kind of quirky. I want to go hang out with these people. Because
for sure,
back in the day, you couldn't find your quirky. You had to deal with who was around you. Now, people are able to segregate and find those groups, but you have to be able to get out and do that and talk to people and make those kinds of communication. So is Cutco what got you into self-development?
For sure. Yep.
Okay.
So I think that church a little bit, but it was different, but in terms of being your best, being at your best, I think that growing up in my faith, like there was an aspect of personal development included in there. But then it was really starting working in sales where there's so much mental management, to be done. And that became such a big focus was being able to show up, to persevere, like learning all these tools to be able to be resilient and really become unstoppable. I believe that was through Cutco. They introduced me to Brian Tracy. They introduced me to Tony Robbins. They introduced me to John Maxwell. They introduced me to many other greats, that I started listening to cassette tapes and then audiobooks, reading books. I'd get them from the library and really understanding the aspect of self-awareness, and a lot of empowerment came through that for sure.
And now you've kind of taken it to the next step. You're also part of GoBundance. We've had Tim Rhodes on. Aaron Bradley was on just recently, who's also part of GoBundance. And actually, Mandy McAllister was on. She's part of GoBundance. Kelly Resendez was a long time ago.
Yeah.
So it seems like, it's funny how all of those connections all came to me separately.
Oh my
Right?
gosh.
It wasn't like this one got to that one. It was all
Uh-huh.
just separate introductions, but people who are successful end up in those same kind of groups. So what brought
Mhm.
you to GoBundance?
So I had the I guess honor and pleasure originally to be asked by some male friends that worked in GoBundance when they were looking to launch a women's division to help be one of the founding members and help get things off the ground. And I served as our operating leader for a couple of years, and then handed that baton to Mandy, and then Kelly, Mandy, and myself took over 2 years by Women for Women 2 years ago, and it's been incredible. And for me, it was really the desire to find other high-powered women. I think that I loved being the only woman. I'm one of two women in my role in North America. And in Cutco, I have other businesses and consulting and speaking and training that I have as well. But it once I hit my mid 30s and I was thinking about settling down and settling down, I still travel all over the world. My settling down was more just having someone that I compromised with, getting married, potentially having kids. I didn't know where people like me were. Growing up, I got a lot of pushback from friends, even in a little bit in high school and definitely in college of man, you're just always on the go, you're always busy, you're doing this, you're doing that. And most men want a woman that's can be at home and can be present, and you just have 20 million things going on. And it made me question myself. And I'm oh man, am I not going to get married? Am I going to be single forever? I'm I want to be married. I want to have kids. I want to travel, and I want this and I want that. And I think that when I heard about GoBundance, I met one of Tim's partners actually. So Tim Rhodes, Mike McCarthy, I met him at an event and we started chatting. I was introduced. It was Hal Elrod. He was old Cutco as well. I don't know if you know Hal in the Miracle Morning. And so we, grew up together. He actually did the foreword for my book. But I remember going to Hal's event, you have to meet Mike McCarthy and him and Tim, and they have this great group. And they told me about it. And I was these are my people, because I was always about how do you have it all, right? How do we have it all? I want the financial security, and I want an incredible family and incredible relationships with people I love. And I want to have fun. And I want to be able to contribute, but growing up, it was either or. Either you have this or either you have that, and GoBundance really focused on how do we have it all? And I love that. And every single quarter, looking at the different areas of our life, how are we gardening? How are we really taking care of those gardens in our life? And what are we doing to be intentional about improving the areas that are important to us? Because for so long, Rocky, and I don't know if this has ever happened, I was oh, my family's so important, this is so important. But if you looked at my calendar didn't reflect it. Right. And that was a big thing for me. I was oh my gosh, if someone looks at my calendar, they wouldn't be wow, family's so important to her, or wow, that's so important. They're she's just a workaholic. And she loves to travel. They could tell that from my calendar. Right. And so that really made me think about, what things look like, and making sure I was prioritizing, time for myself to make sure I was filling myself up, making sure I was prioritizing time with my spouse, with my family, and really deciding on things that filled my cup, annual trips with my entire family. We go on a trip every year, my siblings, their spouses, my dad, the kids, and then having my time with my spouse. And so it was really neat. So GoBundance has been an incredible thing to be a part of, an honor to be asked to help build a women's division. But I have gotten so much more from the group than I could have even imagined, because I think Aaron could say, a lot of us, we did so much for so long on our own, and we did pretty well, but the power of being able to be around like-minded powerhouse females who are heart-centered, who are driven, who are family-focused, who want to give back and contribute and leave a legacy. It's just so incredible to be around these women. And my friends, who said, oh, you can't just travel the world when you have kids, you're going to have to hunker down. And in GoBundance, my girlfriend Tori has been on a trip with her kids around the world on a boat, on a yacht for a while. And my other girlfriend, Adrian, she's been hopping around. I spent a couple months and just touring from Puerto Rico, South America, and they've been moving across. They're currently out in the Pacific. I know they did New Year's over in the Philippines, and she's homeschooling her 3 kids on the road. And I'm like, that's what I always wanted. And now I get to see it, and we're all, we have a different normal, right? Because we do love to travel. We do have virtual businesses, own different companies, and have the ability, the financial ability and the time ability to be able to travel around and really live the life we love. And that's what I was always all about, right? How do we live a life by design and what we love?
This episode of Richer Soul is sponsored by the Profit Answer Man podcast. If you're a business owner who wants to scale and grow, increase profits, or want to have strategic conversations around your financials, then check out the podcast. You'll learn how to work less, increase cash flow, increase profits, and build reserves to help you weather storms. It's built on the Profit First methodology of pay yourself first. The Profit Answer Man podcast is a must listen to for every small business owner and anyone who wants to help them survive and thrive. Check it out on your favorite listening platform. And I think part of that is believing you can, but when you're surrounded by people who pull you down, that doesn't happen. Now, it sounds like your entire family, though, has come along on the ride and also are doing that. That's unusual. What was it that got the rest of them to also change their viewpoints and kind of come along on the journey?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. And I would say more my siblings, but it's been neat to see my dad shifting as well. I think that so I did Cutco, and then I made my sister do it. And then my other sister was a receptionist in my office. And then my brother, when he turned of age, we made him do it. I think that once my parents saw the success I had, because at first they were very hesitant, they saw the growth I had, the responsibility, where I was setting my schedule, setting appointments, going to things. And they were just so impressed seeing the growth, the professional growth that I was having, that once my siblings were doing, they were a lot more supportive. And through being exposed, like we talked about earlier, Rocky, to a lot of the personal development, like I took my siblings to Landmark. I took them and invited them to Tony Robbins. I took them for these things. And we basically all committed to each other, like kind of the buck stops here, like the poverty that's been passed down, for generations in our family, like that stops with us. And it's so neat to see that, my siblings and everyone is, multimillionaires or millionaire to multimillionaires, and our kids will grow up very differently. How we're setting them up, the conversations we're having about money, teaching our kids about money, teaching about not just saving, but wealth building. Because that was another thing, right? I learned about save. Oh, you need to save. But I never learned about wealth building. And so really being able to teach our kids like the power of compound interest, the power, of what can happen if just a little discipline every week, if they put away $25 a week of their money from working, what that is going to mean, 20, 30 years from now. And especially now in the age we're in, innovation, technology, everything happening with AI, and just like the multiplier factor with crypto, AI, whatever, all these different platforms and new things. Like I feel like we're in back when I graduated college in 2000, when the World Wide Web came out, right? And like all these things and so much opportunity. And so I'm super excited. We talk about it all the time. We have a siblings chat, my brothers and sisters, and we all talk about what's happening. Hey, I'm investing in this. Hey, look at this. Hey, check this out. And those are conversations we never saw any of our family have, right? Like they didn't really talk about money. And for us, it's like, how can we help each other keep growing? And hey, I heard about this. What do you think about that? And being able to share resources, videos. Like we have our own little chat where we are constantly talking about what's happening, how we set up our kids, right? So my dad has life insurance, and then my brother's like, well, I set up a Bitcoin account with this, and we're just having them put money into here, and just being able to diversify at a high level. And it's so neat. These are conversations I would have never thought in my youth. And even my parents are like, huh? So that's why I say, I'm like, I don't know that our whole family's for the ride, but our generation, and one of our cousins has really clung on as well. She's like, you guys are doing great. I want that. I want your life, not that life. And she opened her business. She opened a second location of her business. She's been investing. I'm always inviting her, to personal development conferences. She went to Tony Robbins, and it just makes a world of a difference. I mean, it comes down to mindset, right? Like what you believe, what you think can happen, because there are tools and resources to do anything that you want to do, period. Like anything that you want to do. There are guidebooks out there, unless you're a complete innovator in a whole different realm. which if you are, you probably have the brilliance to do so. But, there are so many things that just show the circle of life. And so many things, like history repeats itself, right? And you see it in different ways. And yeah, it's a different era now than it was before, but there's just things that we see patterns, and being able to learn those patterns, evaluate them, whether in the stock market, whether it's in real estate, whether it's in, different markets, just so important. And it's been so fun to get to do that with my siblings, and we're so excited for our kids. We're like, man, they're so lucky. They're like, they get to grow up around all this, and they get to start investing young, and, they get to learn things we had no idea about until our late 20s or early 30s. They're going to know that from, now, it's already like, hey, let's look at properties. Let's look at this, and starting to teach them. So my husband and I can't wait. Our oldest turns 5 tomorrow, and we can't wait to start involving him. We've already started teaching him things, but involving him when, letting him watch when he's doing trading, and then being able to explain things to him, and letting him put in, some of the receipts, or helping look at what the expenses were for the year, what we spend in each areas, how can we come back? And, we have big plans, now that he's closer to an age, usually between 5 and 7, they start understanding a little bit more, and being able to incorporate them into family meetings and decisions. Hey, here's the money we have to invest. Where do we want to put it? And I just, even if they don't totally understand it little, just being exposed to it creates a whole new vocabulary for them financially. That's going to be a game changer in the future.
It is. My kids are older. We went through all of that. We had those conversations. It works. It's doable.
What were some of the things you did that you're like, I'm so glad we did this work? Because as I'm starting on the kid journey late, I love to learn.
So, and this one's debatable. No, and I'll tell you why, but we were very intentional. We gave our kids allowance. Mm-hmm. We did it because we didn't want to create money scripts. We didn't want it to always be tied to friction. We wanted to put money in their hands to let them learn how to spend money. So when they got their money, they had rules. You had money for saving, money for spending, and money for giving. And then once they had money, we stopped buying them like some of the daily things. So if they wanted candy or ice cream, well, you have money. You are free to buy what you want. And then we would start conversations based on that. And you give them opportunities to earn extra money. We did it with cash, which I think in today's world is a missing link. When you start handing your kids a whole bunch of dollar bills, after a few weeks, they got this big fat wad of an envelope, right? They can physically see their money growing. They start to learn. And if one kid spends a little faster, they start to see those differences. Wait, he got to make a choice that I didn't get to make. So you're teaching them delayed gratification. And then you're teaching them investing. You're teaching them how you're making money, the value judgments with money, all of that stuff. But you got to play. It's like golf. You can read all the books you want, but until you swing the club, you're not going to learn to play. So you got to get money in the kids' hands so that they can learn to play is really what it comes down to. There is that other side of the line is if the kids are given too much, they lose the grit. I'm not making a phone call. Mommy's paying for everything. Why I got to do that? A little bit of entitlement. So you have to watch that fine line very closely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. Thanks for sharing.
Out of curiosity, you've been to Landmark, you've been to Tony Robbins. Differences, similarities?
Both, right? I would say, for a lot of friends, and as I've recommended Landmark, I feel like Landmark, and especially for my friends who are more like introvert, more quiet, I feel like that's a better introduction into the personal development world because it's not as like hype and jump and high five and rah, and like my reserved people, they're like, what is going on, right? So I like that Landmark has a lot of tools where it's exploring more just who you are, like why you are the way you are, right? Like it's like, what has made me me? And at least their introductory program really focuses on understanding fully, like, why am I the way I am? Because a lot of times, oh, this is how I am, this is how I am. But really, it were things that happened when we were younger. There are some things we were born with, but we also went through different experiences. We acted in a certain way. We received a certain outcome, and we created different pathways, neurological pathways that let us keep doing that over and over. And it became part of our programming. And so I really loved how it took you through that process where there was this different level of empowerment in terms of I can create anything because these things happened that created me to here. And I did those on autopilot or without intention. And now I know exactly where I want to go, and I can make intentional choices to reprogram myself to get to where I want to be, or act a different way. Like for me, I remember being there and like I was very explosive. I had a really nasty attitude in my youth, total New Yorican. My mom was grew up in New York, Puerto Rican, and oh man, could I explode on someone? I remember seeing that. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not who I want to be. This is not how I want to be. But it was the way I was. But really, it was what I saw. It was conditioning, right? At home. It was what seemed normal. And then understanding like, wow, by seeing this or these things happening, this is where I came to. It gave me a lot more empowerment, and belief that I could go anywhere. So that was kind of my first, that was actually my first taste in the personal development world. Now I had read books from Tony Robbins and heard cassette tapes and things earlier. And I really loved a lot of the things he spoke about. But I really loved how Landmark laid things out in that way. I think that Tony does a phenomenal job with really understanding the track that you're on and really getting clear on where you want to go, and different tools to help you change your state and, all these different, like they go very well together, but I recommend both all the time. And I let people know, Tony, for me, as you dig into his programs more, like his flagship program, Date with Destiny, was one of the best things I've ever been to, but Landmark was also at the time when I did that in 2006, that was a game changer for me. And then I did Date with Destiny in 2014. And that was the next like big, milestone and shifting a lot of beliefs and just standards for myself and in my life.
Out of curiosity, have you done strategic coach or no?
I have not.
Okay. There's some, I wasn't sure what you have, what you haven't. And again, each of these programs have their place, their time. And it hits everybody different, right? We're not all going to have the same experience, and you got to do what works for you. But there's tons of resources out there now more than ever, and you can kind of go figure out what works for you.
For sure.
So on top of all of this, you wrote a book. What inspired you to write the book, Life is a Masterpiece?
Well, it was a great friend of mine really challenging me to write it. I had no intention of ever writing a book. I always saw myself as a speaker, a trainer, and when they said, you should write a book, I'm like, I am not a writer. I was like, I could talk all day, but I'm not a writer. And a buddy of mine looked at me and he said, well, how will your grandkids learn from you? And that just like hit a dagger in my heart because I was such a legacy person and I've worked with youth for so many years, in the Cutco space. The program that I really focus in on is our student program, which are 17 to 25-year-olds, right? And really teaching them skills for life, leadership, communication, foundations of business building, personal selling, and just soft skills they'll be able to take with them in any industry, wherever they go, and be able to really be an asset to that organization. And, for me, being able to see, watching just how people have grown, in those areas, has been, so neat, for me. But I think that, I was like, oh, these kids get to learn from me, but like, how about 5 generations from now, right? Like, I wish I could have learned from my great grandparents. So that was really, when they brought that up, I was like, oh man, they're like, you help so many different youth. Like, how about helping your own family that you'll never get to meet? And so that's where the book came from. I didn't really write it for anyone else to read except my great grandkids. But it's been really amazing to hear the feedback, and how it's been really helpful for so many people who have had the chance to go through it, because it's really set up like a blueprint. And so every chapter has a pause and reflect exercises. the end of every chapter has a design exercise that build upon each other, and so when they're done with it, like there's really a blueprint in terms of where they want to go. And so it's a really fun tool, but yeah, it's what I've done with my those who have worked for me in our student program. And then with clients, I've been doing this for probably since 2006, 2007, probably right after Landmark. Actually, I did that fall of 2006, where I really got clear on helping people get clear. Like, what do you want? And how do we utilize my business as a vehicle for your life, right? It might not be the end all. It might not be the destination, but it's an incredible vehicle you have right now to develop you financially, to develop you personally, to develop you professionally. And how do we help you take advantage of that? Right. And so that's where it really started, in helping people get clear on what they wanted, where they were going, why were they working? What did they need money for? And if we could wave a magic wand and money wasn't an issue, what would life look like? And then really aligning their plans and their work in alignment with that vision, because I think that too many times I've seen so many times people create a business or create something that is just not in alignment, with the life that they want to live. And so even as I do business consulting for clients and companies that we work with, it all starts with, when I'm working with an executive or an entrepreneur or solopreneur, it starts with, all right, so tell me about what you want life to look like in 10 years. And they're like, huh? And they're like, I hired you for business, right? Like, I need help in my business. And I'm like, well, the way we're going to structure your business is really dependent on where you want to be, what you want life to look like. Like, I need to know where your vision is of, like, are you stationary? Are you in your hometown? Are you traveling the world? What do you have the ability to do? And really learning these things and then being able to reverse engineer that, So, but the book came from my great grandkids. Long answer, and it's really just a compilation of like the work I've done with clients for years, so that they'd have a chance to go through some of those processes as well.
They can just watch this video; they'll have it all. It's funny because I have found very few people take the time to really decide, what do I want? And then reverse engineer their life to be able to have it. I mean, that's the way I built my business. That's the way I built my life today. I decided what I want, how I want to do it, including location, time, money, all that stuff. And said, okay, if this is what I want, and this is the kind of work that I really enjoy doing, how do I make that all work together to be able to do that? And I think a lot of people don't believe it's doable. A lot of people don't think about it. But the reality is, if you do, you can get there. Now, it's not going to happen overnight. Nothing ever does. But over time, you're definitely able to achieve all of that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So that was the first part of the book, right?
Well, I mean, the book is, what do you want and why? And then how do you get it, right? And so the nuts and bolts, that's what I get paid the big bucks for, and helping people strategize. So I've always said I'm more of a business strategist, life and business strategist. And then the last third is, how do you sustain it, right? Because life happens. And so knowing, whether it's morning rituals, circle of influence, overcoming adversity, mentors, people, and just how to set it up so that you can actually get this done. Because I've seen for too many years, people put together these great plans, but then something happens and it just falls apart, right? Or they lack the discipline to take action on that. And so that's where the accountability piece is really important, right?
Is it just accountability? Because I find even with accountability, most people don't have discipline.
Yeah, I think that when you get to the core of why someone really wants to do something and connect it to something that's actually really meaningful, like I think about for our salespeople, for example, I want to make this much, or I want to do this money, or I want to do this to go here. It's like, well, why? Why is that important to you? Or like, I want to take my mom on this trip. Great. Why is that important to you? Oh, well, my mom doesn't get it. And I'm like, okay. And why does that matter? Right. And they tell me, and I'm like, okay. And why would that do this? Like, I always call it my 3 whys test. I like to ask why about something at least 3 times, because I found that the answer you start with here, the answer you get to is real. Like, I'll have people well, this happened, and growing up, we never had this. And I'm like, that's okay, cool. That's what I want to know. And so now, every time they make a phone call or they have rejection on the phone or something happens, it's reminding them of that. And it's like, hey, like, you got this, like, mom to Europe, right? Like, we got to, whatever it is that triggered them, I can bring that up and understanding. And so I think that a lot of people set goals and they have a plan, and it's not necessarily like just the, lack of discipline, but it's really like, it sounded good, but they're not really that attached to it. And so I think that when there's that leverage point, and that's something Tony teaches too, of like, well, what would happen if you didn't do it? Who cares? How about if it didn't happen? And they're like, oh, I don't know, it wouldn't matter. Well, then that's not really a goal that moves them, right? Then I'm like, then what are you actually working towards? And what would be exciting? Would it be retiring your mom? Would it be being able to buy a first investment property, buying a home? I helped a 19-year-old buy a house for his parents. Like, that moved him, and that made him work and be disciplined to his goals because he was on a mission to get mom that house. And so I think that people just really need to have a goal that why is that really important to them, and something that actually moves them. That and the accountability piece now comes with reminding them of that. It's like, hey, you're going to do this, or you're just giving up on that, or you're no. They get refocused because it's actually something that they care about. And that's made a really big difference, when I've coached people or worked with people, whether, clients with companies or, individual salespeople. That's been a big factor of really digging in, because I found that when the why is strong enough, like, there is discipline, and they might get off track, but if they have accountability and they have mentors of people that they trust, those people can also help get them in check, like, they'll get back on track to what they need to do if it really means something to them.
And that comes down to, and you kind of said it, until you hit that emotional chord, it's not a real why. And I think more often than not, people are buying the Instagram why. Oh, I see that beautiful picture on Instagram, I want that. But they really don't. They just see something and they're enticed. It isn't personal. It isn't driven. There isn't that fire in the belly, that motivation, that emotional response to it. Until you get to that, it's not real. And I think that's probably why so many people struggle, is they don't have that emotional part in that part in there tied in.
Yep. And I remember I saw that back when I first went to Tony Robbins, to UPW, when he walked through the Dickens process, right? And that was something that stuck with me, where it was like, if you continue on this path, like, where will you be 10 years, 20 years, right? And like, making it that worst case scenario. But I remember Tony sharing once, like, this man that kept trying to wanted to quit smoking, right? And he couldn't quit smoking. And the leverage point for him, what really mattered wasn't quitting smoking. What really mattered was being able to walk his little girl down the aisle when she got married. And when they said, you keep up with this, you're not going to be around to walk her down the aisle. And he stopped smoking right away. Right? Like, when something really matters, like, that's where change happens. And so I think that the best coaches, mentors, supporters can really dig in and find that and help you find, like, what is it that actually matters? Like, what do you really care about? Because that's what you're willing to move mountains for. That's what you're willing to follow a plan for, is like, if there's something, it's not just losing weight, but it's having the energy to run around with my grandkids when I'm like 90 or 100, because I didn't have kids till my 40s. So I'm an older mom. And, if my kids follow my path, I'm not going to be a grandma till my 80s. So being, eating the right foods, all this, it's not just about, fitting in my dress. Like, no, there's a much bigger why. It's like, I want to run around with my kids. I do not want to be like with respirators and in a bed and, immobile. Like, I want to be able to run a marathon. I have that on my dreams list, to run a marathon in my 80s, or walk one. I was like, I want to walk a marathon. That's what I put. And be able to just go and walk for a whole day, and I can do it, And so that is something that I think that a lot of people, they just like set things that sound good or would be nice. And it's like, and how about if it didn't happen? Would it matter? Oh, not really. Well, then it didn't matter, and you're probably never going to do that. So what does matter? Right? Like, let's really dig in. And it's a lot of fun being able to figure that out. But once someone is connected and you understand, like, as I have business clients, and they, and their companies are like, these people are just kind of like going through the motions, or like there's been stagnation, or, the culture's not growth focused, we're able to dig in. That's something that I said, do you know why your people are working? Like, it can't just be to pay bills and take care of their family. That's great. But what would be exciting? Is it paying off certain debt? Is it buying their kid a home or their parent a home? Is it what are things that really, when you share it, they're like, oh my God, that would be amazing. And it's like, would it? Like, is that something that you'd be committed to? And how about if it didn't? How would that affect? how people live or what happens, or now you have to take care of them forever, or, and creating that worst because they're like, no, like, let's go get this done. And it's amazing when you do know like why people are working and what they're doing. Like, I can't tell you, Rocky, how many business owners I've spoken to. And when they're having an issue with someone or lack of performance, and I ask, okay, well, tell me about them. Like, what's important to them? What are they working towards? Why are they at your company? They're like,
because I offered them a job.
Right? They have no idea. I'm like, well, if you dig in and know some of those things, it's going to be a game changer for the company. And I think that comes with conscious leadership, and as I see more and more, leaders that really understand that it's about helping individuals thrive and how can they utilize their programs, products, company, whatever it might be to help them get further towards their personal life goals. Like, those are the companies that are growing. Those are the companies with the best retention. Those are the companies that are really making an impact with the people that work with them.
And that's true. Since writing the book, have there been ahas or surprises that you're like, wow, I never realized that?
I think one of the big things for me was realizing the impact that being vulnerable can make. Like being able to share the imperfections, being able to share the struggles. I grew up with a parent that, I'll just say my mom, and it is that we had to look perfect, be perfect, everything. You sweep the bad stuff under the rug, and I grew up like that. And it wasn't until, that shift where I understood, like, when you can be raw and real. And that was a big aha. And as I was writing the book, it was still like, I'm not sharing certain things. And there was a point where I was like, you know what? I need to just share openly about some of the struggles and things. And I really felt that. But I'd never done that before. I mean, this is 2019 that I did that. So like, I was in my late 30s, when I finally was like, who cares if people, like, if they know like, we're human beings, we're not robots. And the more we can show our imperfections, the more people can connect with us as real humans, right? And we're more approachable and they want to learn with and from us versus like, oh, they're on this pedestal that I think I could never reach. That's not going to help, and I didn't realize what a separation I was making between myself and some of the people that I was working with by never sharing, my flaws, never sharing my struggles, never sharing those things, or being really minimal with it. So I think that was a big aha. And obviously there's a way to do it. You're not like, oh my God, let me tell you guys about everything, but being able to say, hey, you know what? I went through some stuff in the past and here's what helped me. And being able to share, like, I made a really bad decision with this. Here's how I learned from it. Here's how I grew from it, right? And being able to share how we grow through things, not just go through things, is such an inspiration for others. And so I think that was a big aha for me because that hadn't really shifted for me until I wrote the book.
And it's true. I mean, I think I had to learn the same thing. And it's kind of generational. Like, you were expected to be perfect back in the day. And now, not so much. Well, even though now, though, there's the Instagram life, right? The perfect life. Right. But the reality is, it's not real. And I think that's one of the biggest things I've noticed as I've gotten older is you start to look at the social media life, and then you happen to be at that place and you're like, yeah, that wasn't that, right? It's not all that. And I think we make up these stories about it. I think more and more, though, today, people want authenticity. They want the reality. Sure. They want to know the struggle. And
they're not in it alone, right?
Yeah.
So they go, oh, they went through that like me, right? That relatable factor.
Correct.
Makes people feel, I think, a lot more at ease versus like, I could never match up to XYZ expectations or, putting that pressure on themselves.
Now, there's one thing that I struggle with this, though, because they hear somebody tell a story of the problem they were in and how they kind of got out. That person got out because maybe they were lucky or maybe they found a path that worked back then. And now they're trying to tell everyone to follow this path. And it's like, whoa, just because it worked for him and just because it worked then doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And what he didn't realize is the path he's taking is putting him into other danger that he hasn't hit yet. So be careful who you follow.
Yeah, I think that, when people are looking to persevere, grow. Like there's so many examples of people who have, done things, been there, but a lot of it I think has to do with really seeing the focusing on the personal growth and development, focusing on going inward, right? Like things that work forever have worked are being still, being quiet, listening, right? And so meditation, I heard someone say, prayer is when you ask for things, meditation is when you actually listen for what's coming, right? But like being able to slow down, as leaders, because we have so much wisdom within ourselves and we have so much intuition. And I feel like so many human beings are scared to trust themselves, So they look, what did they do? And it's like, sit and listen. Hey, how do I feel about this? Like, do I feel, because it comes down to self-awareness, focus, vision and focus, and being able to shift yourself. Like a lot of it is what you're focusing on, because what you focus on expands. And so if you're focusing on everything wrong that's going in your life, you're going to have more of it. And let me tell you, I was the culprit of that at one point. I'm like, oh, this is wrong. And this is wrong. And this is more stuff kept going on. I'm like, oh my gosh, when it rains, it pours, right? Like, don't say it. Like all these things are stacking. And so knowing that like our words create so much, right? And so regardless, someone's done that, it doesn't mean that that's the exact thing. Like what they did is they got clear on something they wanted. They made a decision to make a different choice, right? To shift them. And that doesn't mean you have to make that choice, but looking at, okay, what is something simple and easy that can help change my focus, that can help change my state, and for some people like my husband, it's like exercise a lot of times, that'll really help shift him. Or if he's going through something, he's like, I'm just going to go for a really long run and then be able to journal and, get clear on things when there's life transitions, and really seeing, okay, what gifts do I have? How can I utilize these? And being able to find people that can help bring your gifts out and help you tap into your genius, and really help you shine your light, not necessarily do it just like me, but there are great models and that's awesome too. But like you said, be careful who you're modeling. And I think doing your due diligence, doing a little background check. If there's someone that you're like, I want to do this just like them, make sure that you take time to look at that, and that's something that we've all learned and made mistakes with, like I was always too trustworthy. And I realized like some people are just, they look nice, but they're not. And so we need to do background checks when doing deals, different investments, making sure that you're taking time for those things and not just, this person worked with them and this person did that, and like going to do the same thing, because also different seasons, different markets, different, you need to check on all those things. And that's another aspect of it, more on the financial or investment side. But absolutely, I think that I just wish that more people, and we're seeing, I think that in our world, I keep seeing it more and more and with youth, but like would really take time to go in to really understand why they are the way they are. And that's what I love Landmark and recommend it for so much. But you don't have to do that, but really getting clear so that you understand, like, where did your strengths, talents, like how did these personality traits get created? Again, there's some things that you're born with, but a lot of things are developed through your youth, and how you act and how you got rewarded for an action. And then it being like, oh, I should keep acting like this. Right. So the more people can tap into that and really own their uniqueness, their special, versus trying to copy everybody else, that authenticity of who they are and how they show up in the world. There's a lot of beauty there, but not everyone has the confidence to own their quirk, right? Like we talked about earlier, they're quirky or whatever it might be. So really encouraging more of that, because the world needs that, more individuality.
It does. And
more
the inward journey is one that most people struggle with, because you have to face the mirror. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people who get wealthy kind of realize that, because they get the money and they're still miserable. Mm-hmm. And so they are the constant, and the constant needs the change, and they need to look within and make those changes. Otherwise, nothing is going to change. It's all them. And we all have to go through that journey. And it's a constant, continuous journey until the end. You just keep going.
Oh, it is. So make sure you've got some great people to do it with you. So like I always say, I'm like, if you don't have, some people, it's all family and that's amazing. But then there's also your chosen family, right? Who are the people that you're surrounding who are helping you be at your best? I cannot, and emphasize how important that is, and the difference that that'll make in your world. Like, I don't know where I'd be without the mentors, the guidance, I had, but also the people I chose to hang out with. And then sometimes it took me to a negative place, like getting kicked out of school and getting arrested, and understanding that, who I was spending time with was going to influence decisions I made, was going to encourage me to be better, or to compromise on maybe things I said I might not do or whatever, because like fitting in or just being around them, I'm compromising on things that are important to me, versus when I'm with my GoBundance ladies or, other mentors, other friends of mine, accountability groups. It's like, they make me want to be better. They make me want to do more. I'm like, man, like it's so life-giving and stimulating. And you have people who are more than willing to share, their journey, their processes, their struggles, their lessons, to help shorten your learning curve, and like find more people like that, who want to give back, who want to pay it forward. And if you surround yourself with people like that, ooh, you're going to have an exciting life. And it's not always going to be perfect, but when you have those people in your corner, like you can get through anything,
That is so true. You are the average of the people around you. So be careful who you put in your average, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It's time to learn the secrets of life. What's your secret to living an abundant life?
Gratitude.
Yeah, that tends to be the number one choice of everyone.
Yeah.
It comes up more often than not. And you know what? It doesn't cost anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just being happy with the simple things in life.
That's just the energy you're putting out, and you're able, so much more gets attracted to you. I was like, people are always just come in or like want to connect. I'm like, I probably just, I love my life, and I'm very happy with, even though we have, dark times, things that happen, like I'm always thinking about my blessings, and how we can pay that forward, or be able to give some of the gifts, talents, resources that we've been blessed with, and being able to share those with others. So I do think gratitude opens, a whole portal to abundance.
That it does. What did you learn later in life that you wish you would have learned sooner?
More money equals more impact. If I was, beating that drum at 19, oh man, it'd be real exciting now.
And that's it.
Yeah.
One of the one things I learned early with money mindsets was just simply to ask the question, money is, and whatever that answer is, that's how you view it, and that's how it's being used by you. In your case, the freedom, the abundance, and making impact.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to give an 18-year-old one specific piece of wisdom, what would it be?
Ooh. 18-year-old. I work with a lot of those. I'm like one piece. I would say, take time to do a dream session and really think about what life could look like, right? I think that we go on autopilot. A lot of times we're doing what everyone else thinks we should do, or what has been put upon us. But taking time to really sit with, like, what could life look like? And not being discouraged by those who don't think as big as you do, because there are people out there that think even bigger, and who would love to mentor you, who would love to take you under your wing, and just know that anything is possible, with the right plan, with the right mentors, resources. If you're willing to go out there to learn, to put in the work, anything is possible.
That it is. If people would like to learn more about you and follow you, where's the best place for them to find you?
I would say my website has links to all the things. So cathychristen.com, and that's Cathy with a C. And then Christen is spelled like the name Chris, CHRIS, and then like the number 10, TEN.com. So cathychristen.com.
And we'll put that in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Have you defined the life you want to live? Is your business in line with it? Mine is. It took time to get there, but it's possible. Lots of people are doing this. As you can see, they all find me. What are you waiting for? We only live once. You might as well enjoy it. Here's the question. Who do you know that would benefit from listening to today's episode? Would you do me a favor and share it with them? Next week, we've got Sean Nowotnick to talk about F happiness. I think you're going to enjoy it. Thanks for listening. Have an abundant week.